Charlas de la noche. Palabras con imagen. El análisis de los acontecimientos que influyen en nuestra vida con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Amigos, pues les estuve anunciando que la dama Beatriz Pajés, quien colabora cada viernes en este espacio, junto con su compañero del programa, Carlos Alarraqui, pues fueron invitados a ser oradores y a presenciar las actividades de CIPAC. Pero antes de ponerles el video, les quiero pues sintetizar y darles a entender qué significa esto, porque ya me imagino, como esta organización es algo netamente americano, líderes, gente muy... Perdón, estoy en vivo, no lo pude evitar. Gente muy reconocida de la política, de la religión, de los medios, pues es obvio que al regresar a México, pues la dama Pajés y el colega Larraqui no los van a bajar pues, de criticarlos de otra cosa. Entonces, yo quiero y me estoy dando a la tarea, pues básicamente de darles a entender lo que todo esto significa para evitar malos entendidos y evitar malas interpretaciones. Vamos, primero que nada, esta conferencia empezó ayer jueves, obviamente la inauguró el presidente Donald Trump y fue transmitida por el canal oficial político C-SPAN. CPAC significa Conservative Political Action Conference y este año fue dedicada contra el narcoterrorismo. Déjenme y me detengo aquí para explicarles. Ustedes ya han visto fragmentos de esta conferencia. En el backstage de esta conferencia fue donde Milei saludó a Trump y por primera vez y se hicieron buenos amigos, básicamente. Y detrás de ello, pues no hay malas intenciones. Y me preocupa mucho aclarar esto porque cuando vean esta nota, el inglés americano es muy definido para ciertas cosas. Vamos a ver aquí a lo largo del video, pues, que los organizadores le dicen a la audiencia que son, pues, periodistas, exfuncionarios mexicanos y de otros países y de todo el mundo que no están solos, que la ayuda va en camino y no se refieren a la ayuda militar que Donald Trump tanto ha, pues de cierta manera, alertado en enviar al ver que la presidenta no hace nada. No, esta acción es más que nada de convencer a nuevas clases políticas, a nuevos jóvenes, a gente que está estudiando ciencias políticas y administración pública como carrera, para que se interesen en hacer algo respecto a lo que es el rescate de la democracia, la libertad, la justicia y los derechos en México. No está traducido, no lo puedo traducir todo porque es un video demasiado largo. Estoy tomando fragmentos de lo más interesante, pero se los puse subtitulado en inglés y de allí ustedes pueden tomar notas. Vamos a dejar correr el video y por favor manden sus comentarios.
President Trump, more live coverage here on C-SPAN 3 now.
El
As we join the
presidente
summit
Trump,
on
luego de
countering drug
hablar,
trafficking. It's being hosted by the Conservative Political Action Conference.
hubo un orador que pronunció una oración por el bien.
In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
And can I ask, Myung, you just walked in. Where's Myung?
Y luego piden a una miembro
We have to say the pledge.
que pertenece a la delegación de Corea del Sur que por favor diga o se pronuncie en una oración. La chica aparece y dice el
You're an honorary
pledge.
Latin American today.
Es una oración, un juramento que todos los estudiantes hacen frente a la bandera de los Estados Unidos.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Surprise.
Al entrar los niños a clases de primaria y secundaria y preparatoria, repiten el
Young does
pledge.
our great partners in South Korea, so it just shows.
Básicamente significa: yo prometo defender la bandera y la Constitución de los Estados Unidos ante enemigos domésticos y foráneos. Y bueno, algo así es lo que dice.
A hero in his country, someone who stands for freedom, someone who is looking to fight for a better Mexico. Let's make Mexico great again.
Vamos a hacer México grande otra vez.
In this great event, Juan Iván Peña Nieto, come join us on the stage.
Iván Peña pasa a hablar y a dar una conferencia sobre sus experiencias en México como miembro y como invitado de C-SPAN. Vamos a escucharle.
We are an empirical group committed to the defense of the Christian West and to the restoration of the finest conservative values of the United States. Values that for more than 250 years have strengthened societies across this continent. Few nations have seen as deeply shaped by that inspiration as Mexico. Our Constitution, our separation of powers, our federal system, and even our name, the United Mexican States, are direct heirs of the libertarian vision forged by the founding fathers of this great nation. For that reason, the summit is more than a conference. It's a symbol of urgency. An urgency call to rescue values that today in Mexico and increasingly the United States are under sustained and coordinated attack. That attack is driven by old enemy of the West, that is socialism. True to this historical pattern, socialism never advances alone. It allies itself with the worst elements of society. Today, it has aligned itself with drug trafficking networks and with hostile foreign interests, seeking to weaken the West and to corrode the moral, political, and economical foundations of our civilization. Justice and liberty, when manipulated in bad faith, are turned into weapons against themselves. That is the battle on which we stand today. For Mexicans, narcoterrorism is not an abstract concept. It is a daily reality. I speak not from theory, but from personal tragedy. Several years ago, the husband of my mother, a retired lawyer, 70 years old, was murdered in broad daylight on a main avenue of the city of Chihuahua, a city of more than 1 million inhabitants. He was killed by a young hitman under the influence of drugs, simply to steal his car. The consequences destroyed my family. My mother, a volunteer with the Society of San Vicente de Paul, an elementary school teacher and a devout Catholic, suffered an emotional collapse that took her life within 2 years. This is what narco-terrorism does. It does not only kill individuals, it annihilates families, communities, and nations. But this is not the first time my family or my country has confronted chaos in defense of the Republic. More than a century ago, my family in Chihuahua took up arms to defend the Mexican Republic against the French Empire and its Austro-Belgian allies. Mexico itself took refuge in Chihuahua during this struggle, in the frontier region also known as El Paso, Texas, today Ciudad Juárez and El Paso. Even earlier, my great uncle Joaquin Terrazas personally led the defense of Chihuahua against the violent Apache uprising. He defeated Victorio as a warrior giving rise on the American side of the border to the defining chapter of the 19th century epic when Victorio's young lieutenant fled north. His name was Geronimo. That charter history teaches us a simple truth. Order must prevail over chaos if liberty is to endure. Those same Republican values, democracy, free markets, and peace, are the ones we're called to defend today, not with rifles, but with courage, organization, and moral clarity. They are values that give rise to Mexico Republicano, a movement born from the middle classes of northern Mexico, historically aligned with the shared destiny of North America. For this conviction, we have paid a price. We have faced pressure from drug cartels. Our leaders have been kidnapped. Large positions for national structure have been treated and to prevent us from achieving legal party registration. Why? Because our very existence reminds these groups of something they fear. The decent Mexicans are not intimidated, even facing enemies that appear invincible. Before concluding, a little personal word of gratitude. I thank Mexico Republicano team whose courage made this summit possible. Richard Raeter, Simón Vargas, Pedro Cobo, Angie, and Joaquin Rodriguez. Your commitment, often carried out under real risk, is a testament to convictions, not treat a kind of silence. I thank my beloved wife, a former senator, and my tireless companion in the struggle. Her integrity, strength, and faith have sustained me in the hardest moments. I'm grateful to my children here today, Emilio and Paola, committed conservatives and Republicans who understand that liberty is not inherited automatically, but defended by each generation. Finally, my son Juan Iván, fully committed with the cause, who had to remain in Mexico due to obligations of service. His absence itself, reminder that struggle is real and travel across border. God bless America, God bless Mexico, God bless our alliance, and God bless Donald Trump, the best president of the United States. Thank you very much.
Dios bendiga América, Dios bendiga México, Dios bendiga a Donald Trump. Este orador describe cómo fue víctima de una agresión.
There's always these conferences and these events. Our goal at CPAC, and as we're going into CPAC USA, which you are all invited to come, we have a huge international presence there in March 25th through the 28th. I know Juan Iván will be there with us as well. The theme is actions, not words. So while we are going to have these conversations on stage, our goal is from here to know what is our call to action. ¿Cuáles son nuestras acciones? No solamente son palabras, pero de verdad, ¿qué hay que hacer en lo que es nuestras acciones para de verdad hacer una diferencia en nuestras comunidades y nuestras naciones? So I think, Juan Iván, we're committed to working together, working with our international partners to tackle this issue of narco-terrorism, to call them out, and to make sure that we do everything we can to put pressure on our decision makers, on our leaders, on our congressional leaders, on our administration to keep going, do more, to be able to break up these cartels, stop the political violence, stop the assassination of innocent people, and help ensure that we can protect families from this evilness, this demonic evilness that we have seen happening because of the drugs that have come into this country and have impacted so many countries. So let's get started. Vamos.
Vamos en marzo del 25 al 28 a ejercer más presencia internacional para presionar a las autoridades de gobiernos que tienen carteles narcoterroristas, a presionarlos para evitar que sigan haciendo daño.
Cartel Capture State Collapse Panel. Frank Russo, CPAC Director of the Center for Combating Human Trafficking.
Va a hablar Frank Russo, director acerca del tráfico humano.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. And I'm excited to introduce our panelists, Larry and Raul. They are both integrally involved in the Mexican government's operations here in the United States. Larry, will please come join us. Thank you for being here.
Larry y Raúl van a hablar sobre situaciones.
So I know we have a very busy morning, so we're going to dive right in. And the thesis of today is that the narco-terrorism problem impacts all Americans, but also all of the Mexican citizens that so many
El narcoterrorismo es un problema, no solamente para México, ya lo es para Estados Unidos.
That this narco-terrorism problem interlinks with issues like human trafficking, like security agreements. But there's also a narrative that we want to dispel, that there are not partners in Mexico that want to be a part of this security success. Can you talk a little bit about your work to strengthen those ties between our two countries to make sure that we can keep our communities safe?
Después de esta narrativa, no solamente vamos a ser socios, vamos a coadyuvar y ayudar a hacer un esfuerzo grande para derrotar a los carteles y a los políticos que los protegen usando toda la fuerza legal del derecho internacional.
Mexicans living mainly here in the United States. I live in New York and Mexico City, and it's my second term. I defeated Morena, which is the party of the regime. I defeated Morena in 2021, and I defeated by a landslide in 2024. And I started with that because I always push for the change of the narrative.
Y soy congresista en Nueva York y vivo en Nueva York y en la Ciudad de México.
Because my dad came to this country from scratch with nothing in his pocket but $100, and he achieved the American dream. And that's how I perceive the U.S. I love America and I love Mexico. So that's the change of narrative. Most of
Yo amo Estados Unidos y amo a México. Mi papá vino aquí con $100 en la bolsa, como todos.
We love America and we love Mexico. Out of those 12 million first-generation Mexicans, 8 million out of those 12 are legally in this country. Only 4 million are not. Obviously, we have to talk about those 4. But we have the double that are with legal status. We're not talking about those 8. We're not talking about those second and third generations. All of them, all of us, love America and love Mexico. And that
todos estos millones de mexicanos, mexicoamericanos, documentados o indocumentados, amamos a Estados Unidos y amamos a México.
Different in different way. Against the U.S. administration, against feeling or sentiment of U.S.-Mexico as a whole. And that's one of the main things I'm pushing in Congress, change the ideology. Sometimes in Congress I speak in English because I have to talk to those second and third generations that are raised here in the U.S. and don't speak a perfect Spanish. So that's the idea of what we do as a deputy that represents the migrants. And that's the first part of my intervention, that I would say from Congress, we want to talk about the narrative. From PAN, which is my party, the first position, the first leader of the opposition in Mexico, the first political party, the strongest one. And that's why we want to change. We have to have the voice of the diaspora, of the Mexican diaspora living in the U.S., creating jobs, making $2.5 billion only by Mexicans here, paying taxes. That's the story of success. Just like my dad did and a lot of parents did, and just like second generations like mine are doing. Thank you.
No, thank you, and I think you've hit on such an important point. Yes. We talked about it a little bit backstage. In order for there to be success on public safety, on fighting these types of crimes that are horrifying to the community, we have to do it together. And I think you have been a bridge builder in a way that we just have not seen from the current regime in Mexico. So we're thankful for your service. Now, Larry, I'm going to bring you to the tougher topic. We talked about it last summer right here, which is fighting that nexus between human trafficking and narco-terrorism. The unfortunate challenges with drug addiction, with trafficking those individuals who get hooked, those challenges of things, this problem being cross-border, unfortunately feels like a 5,000-foot problem, but it's a real one in our communities. And most importantly, it impacts the economic and personal agreements and the human element of what we do between the Mexico and the United States. I'd love for you to talk about how you've experienced that here at home, but also, over the border, and how those partnerships can actually strengthen our ability to fight these crimes.
Sure, and thank you. Good morning to all. And I couldn't agree more. First off, thank you and thank CPAC for hosting this very important forum. Definitely, it impacts our communities. Let me start off. My perspective comes from working in this very important relationship for over 2 decades. Not only cross-border building ties and bringing business to the U.S. and making sure that our U.S. companies in Mexico are doing well, and that obviously America is well taken care of. And one of the issues that I've always seen, I live in Houston, and Houston is the #1 city with human trafficking. Most people don't realize it. Most people in Houston don't realize
Houston es la ciudad número 1
drug trafficking and
con
human
tráfico
trafficking
humano.
are big issues that
Yo tengo negocios en México y en Estados
they're
Unidos.
right at a 5,000 feet level, and the issue is it's stemming from lack of working together with Mexico to resolve these 2 very big issues: drug trafficking and human trafficking. How does that affect us, right? How does it affect just the general population, and how does it affect our different cities? That's a very, very important point, and that's something that President Trump has gotten involved in, and I've seen how his degree of strategic insight into this issue has
Veo cómo el presidente Trump está desarrollando una estrategia que es por lo cual estamos aquí, para acabar con el tráfico de drogas de parte de los carteles narcoterroristas y el tráfico humano.
Coming into our country and are already developed in our country. So how do we stop that from the get-go?
¿Cómo vamos a parar todo esto?
A reliable partner, and how do we make sure that they're not affecting our communities is the biggest question. And
Y evitar que todo esto afecte a nuestras comunidades en ambos lados de la frontera.
And making sure that there's focus on it, calling them foreign terrorist organizations makes a huge difference. And that's where I think our communities will definitely benefit. And we have to do something about it, because it's just a growing problem, and it's already cancer in both of our countries.
Well, Larry, you're a better moderator than me, because you got ahead of my next question for all, which is, what do we do about it? How do we begin to address this problem? And one of the discussions we also had was around the different levers that our government and your government has to maybe make these security agreements have some teeth, require that partnership. Well, can you talk about maybe some of these treaties or partnerships that could be leveraged to help fight this problem?
Especially in terms of what PAN or the opposition is doing in Mexico, we're pushing for a democratic clause. What is the democratic clause on the USMCA side? That if any of the signing parties of the treaty, that means US, Canada, or Mexico, has strong ties, links with organized crime, the treaty should be dissolved. That's one point that we need to focus on the USMCA. There cannot be treaties, there cannot be investment, there cannot be economic strengths within the 3 countries if there's no legal certainty.
Tenemos que ponernos de acuerdo entre los 3 socios del acuerdo comercial más grande en el mundo, Canadá, Estados Unidos y México, en disolver las sucias sociedades de dinero proveniente del narcotráfico y todas estas organizaciones. Pero si no estamos de acuerdo todos, va a ser muy difícil. Yo, como representante del partido de oposición PAN, pues he estado pugnando por hacer todo esto en diferentes estados, pero hacerlo de una manera legal, jurídica, con una normativa enfocada a que los políticos mexicanos entiendan a los políticos norteamericanos.
One of the parties, especially in Mexico, and the organized crime. 86% of Mexico is controlled by drug cartels.
80% de México, 86% está controlado por los carteles de la droga.
Financed. All those funds from drug cartels are being poured into this regime. And we mentioned it in Mexico in the Congress, and now we want to say it here in Washington, D.C. So that something we need, a democratic clause, just like the European Union has when they signed their treaties with different countries. That's what we should have in this USMCA review.
Me voy a adelantar un poco porque es muy larga la conferencia y no me da tiempo. A ver si encontramos la participación de Beatriz Pajés y Carlos Alarraqui, donde pues les dicen que no están solos, y también una breve participación de la dama Beatriz Pajés.
They did from that point is continue to ramp this up and wage war on our country. Just in my home state, Matt, we lose 3,000 young people a year to drug overdose. Most of it is fentanyl, and almost everything has fentanyl in it. It is been devastating. It doesn't get enough attention.
Este político está hablando de lo devastado.
Hanging out of my home, but they're passing these out. It's no different than what they were doing with passing out a lot of these flags during the George Floyd riots. They're simply using these people. It benefits another country. Narco-terrorism is a real thing. It's very scary. And if we don't have a strong security perspective in the United States and we don't handle it accordingly, people will die.
And people have died in the hands of the narco-terrorists. You know, I think a key component here is obviously we have a lot of our Mexican partners here with us.
Terroristas aquí en Estados Unidos. Necesitamos tener una autoridad más fuerte en las calles, al igual que en México, en ambos gobiernos.
Give some special emphasis to the administration because the problem was so serious and it remains serious.
I want to put it to you this way, and I don't know if a lot of people know my background, but I've spent a lot of years of my life, nearly 25 years, covering the drug crisis, both from the U.S.-Mexico border through Central America, South America, but also all the way to Afghanistan, where I spent a good 7 years covering the war in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Hace 25 años cubriendo el tráfico de drogas en Estados Unidos, en la frontera con México, todo Latinoamérica y también la guerra en Afganistán, cuando Al Qaeda y el Estado Islámico fueron parte importante de todo un conflicto.
I'm very familiar with this, and what is so stunning to me when you talk about how Biden was really pushing for this office, both Democrats and Republicans.
Dinero para protección, sino que deciden pagar con droga. Ese es el primer cambio de mercado.
So it's almost, just so you know, for those that speak English, it's like you change it from like you pay with drugs, not money, is kind of what they were doing in Mexico.
Así es. Pero después de eso, pedían favores, luego se aliaron con muchas autoridades policiales y militares y pasaron a imponer condiciones. Y hoy imponen candidatos. Ese es el gran problema. Pero la nueva modalidad es que se aliaron con narcotraficantes extranjeros.
So they're aligning themselves with the narco-traffickants who are on the outside, basically, for the foreign narco-traffickants.
Y lo último, se aliaron con terroristas.
And they also aligned themselves with terrorists. So this is how serious it became. So then he was part of this campaign against the narco-traffickants.
Entonces, estos agentes del mal, porque ellos quieren la cultura de la muerte, frente a nosotros que queremos la cultura de la vida, ellos necesitan enfrentar una fuerza, ¿sí?, suficientemente agresiva, presente, como la que está dando el presidente Trump.
Right, so they need to face these narco-terrorists. What they need is a forceful front, basically against them. Like it's what we're seeing in Venezuela. That we've been able to go after the narco traffickants, put them on defense.
Así es. Y en esa medida, sí, podremos dar un paso para erradicar, sí, un problema que es mutuo.
Yeah.
Porque en México se cobra derecho de piso, se mata, como te decía hace un momento, sí, a los disidentes, sí, y hay muchas evidencias de esto. Y lo que necesitamos, sí, es trabajar más de manera conjunta.
And the narco traffickants, like their goal is to kill. And so you've seen the fact that they've killed the mayor in one of the towns, in one of the regions in Mexico. He was going to be probably governor of that area, and they don't care. Like, it's about the culture of death. I do want to get to you, Frank, first. You've been our director for Center for Human Trafficking, Combating Human Trafficking, seen in the forefront of this all, of this, how this connects with the drug epidemic that we're seeing in this country, and how it's all circular, right? We were saying how drug abuse is linked to the human trafficking component. Explain that process.
Absolutely, and thank you all for being here and a part of this important
Por
conversation.
favor, Frank, explique el proceso de cómo el tráfico humano también se correlaciona paralelamente al tráfico de drogas.
They don't want to be in. And that takes oftentimes the form of drug abuse, mental health abuse, and significant challenges to individuals who sometimes do come
Voy a
to stable
mover un
environments,
poquito más adelante, amigos de la audiencia, para ver si encontramos a la dama Pajés. Todo esto está en el sitio que están viendo del canal C-SPAN. Lo pueden ver completo. Lo que pasa es que yo estoy muy presionado por la producción en materia de
la ley. No puede ser la ley, porque eso es anarquía y en la anarquía nada florece. El modelo actual está agotado. Dejemos de pensar únicamente en soldados, en bombas y en guerra, y pensemos cómo le quitamos al narco y a esos que se han coludido con ellos ese poder. Gracias, Richard.
Gracias a ti.
So I was pointed out that some of y'all didn't speak Spanish, so I'll recap what was said here briefly. So what this panel has underscored is that security cannot be built on euphemisms or partial truths. It requires clarity, alignment, and the political will to confront uncomfortable realities. Cooperation is not a slogan, it is a sustained commitment that demands shared
Operación no es un eslogan,
responsibility.
es una responsabilidad determinada entre ambos gobiernos de manera seria y responsable.
It's no longer whether we understand the threat, but whether we are prepared to act with the seriousness it demands. Thank you all for contributing to this conversation, for being here, for listening to us, and for being here today.
Gracias a todos y vamos a darle cobertura mañana a la segunda parte del briefing y estaremos informándoles, amigos de la audiencia, con el favor de Dios, ya todo de manera más profunda, y esperemos que mañana sí nos toque ver a la dama Pajés y a Carlos Alarraqui participando, y la participación de Cabeza de Vaca, es gobernador de Tamaulipas. Y bueno, ha habido una serie de comentarios, han detallado en esta conferencia cómo extorsionan los negocios, no solamente con el derecho de piso, sino cobrándoles con la mercancía que van a vender. Entonces llega el grado en que la gente que tiene negocios pues tienen que subir los precios de sus productos porque no les queda de otra. Y cuando van a quejarse con el gobierno a todos los niveles, municipal, estatal y federal, les va peor. Los mismos aquí en esta exposición, los mismos comerciantes hicieron llegar testimonios a través de estos líderes en los que ejemplifican cómo el ejército se ha vuelto parte de esta marabunta de la corrupción, imparable, intocable, y que no hay justicia que ellos apliquen porque están del lado equivocado de la ley. Tristemente. Buenas noches, buenos días. Nos vemos y nos escuchamos mañana, y disculpen los problemas de la logística, es muy difícil cubrir algo así sin tener un traductor profesional, pero le seguiremos dando cobertura mañana. Gracias. Hasta entonces.
Frank Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Escuchaste el análisis de la noticia, transparente como el agua, con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.